Welcome back to the channel today. We're going to review this 2004 Chevrolet SSR Super Sport Roadster, so stick around after the intro and we'll check it out. The Chevrolet SSR was produced by Chevrolet for the model years 2003 to 2006 in their Lansing, Michigan, Lansing Craft Center assembly plant. It was produced in association with ASC, which was American Sunroof Corporation, until it was renamed to American Specialty Cars in 2004. ASC was responsible for designing and the installation of the retractable hardtop, which is one of the main distinguishing features of this particular vehicle. The prototype SSR was based on the Chevy S10 platform, and it included a 6-liter V8 engine, so the prototype debut sets some expectations as far as the power to weight ratio being a smaller and lighter pickup with a 6-liter V8 engine in it. When the production vehicle debuted, it was a bit of a surprise that the size and weight had grown, but the engine had not. It actually had shrunk down to a 5.3-liter V8. The production vehicle was based on the GMT 370 platform, which was also used by the Chevy Trailblazer EXT. In fact, the extended version frame was the basis for the frame here in the SSR. That frame was taken and 13-inch section was cut out and rewelded so that it would be the appropriate size for the body to be dropped on top of it for the SSR. The production of the SSR was broken up into 3 different segments of production. The first sellable batch of them were known as the Signature Series. They're all ultraviolet in color. They each had a particular theme or story associated with them, such as Doobie Brothers Band, Gibson Guitar Company, Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. So each had a particular story, theme, and carried documentation and memorabilia that went with the vehicle. Plus they had a center waterfall badge that identified them as such and such number of 25 and Signature Series on that badge. I have an authorized reproduction of that particular waterfall badge. It just says SSR on mine, but the Signature Series will state that it's part of the Signature Series. The actual production of the vehicle started fairly late in the calendar year for 2003, but it was released as a 2003 model year in calendar year 2003, and beginning in 2004 calendar year it switched over to 2004 model year. Production continued until the early part of the 2006 model year, and production was suspended at that point to evaluate the future plans for the vehicle and to evaluate the sales of the vehicle and the general automotive market. It was decided that the SSR would no longer be produced after the remaining supplies were consumed, so a final production run was set up and ran at that Lansing, Michigan plant along with ASC, and approximately 900 vehicles are included in that final production run. They too are identified by a waterfall badge that says final production run, but that's been available as a replacement part from Chevrolet dealerships, so some vehicles may carry such a badge and it may not actually be a final production run. So I urge you to take a look at the VIN sequence that I'll place here on the video screen to identify the VIN numbers that are part of that final production run to confirm that your vehicle is truly a final production run, or one that you're looking at to purchase is actually one of those. The production SSR had the following engine and transmission configurations. For the 2003 and 4 model years, it had a 5.3-liter V8 LM4 engine rated at 300 horsepower. The automatic transmission was the only option at that point, and it was a 4L60E. Beginning with the 2005 model year, GM switched the engine to a 6-liter LS2 engine, and the automatic transmission was changed to the 4L65E in the automatic configuration, and they also started offering a 6-speed manual configuration at that point in time. The engine horsepower ratings were a little bit different between the automatic and manual, so for 2005 the automatic was rated at 390 horsepower and the manual transmission was rated at 395. For the 2006 model year, some additional tweaks were done to the intake and a couple of small changes that boosted the horsepower rating for 5 on both of those respectively. So an automatic transmission was at 395 horsepower, and with the manual transmission you now had a 400 horsepower rating for a factory truck with a manual transmission rear-wheel drive. So at that point in time in 2006 you could obtain a hot rod pickup with a 400 horsepower engine and a 6-speed manual. Pretty sweet deal at that point. Here are some interesting stats and factoids about the Chevy SSR. The curb weight of the vehicle is 4,865 pounds. That's before any passengers or cargo added to it. So it's a fairly heavy vehicle. A lot of it's metal. I mean, retractable hardtop is all metal. The hood is metal. The fenders are metal. You have the typical front and rear bumper fascias that are plastic, but a lot of metal in the vehicle. Plus it's based on the GMT 370 platform, which is a heavy SUV platform to begin with. So it just goes to say that it's a heavy vehicle to begin with without adding anything to it. The gross vehicle weight rating for this is also at 6,050 pounds. The factory rating for towing, yes, it is rated for towing, of only 2,500 pounds. GM did provide a hitch receiver on the vehicle underneath the rear bumper fascia, but it's a unique design such that you must buy the appropriate hitch insert for the vehicle. It was produced by Oris, and Oris insert is a unique style that you have to basically use a key and twist the insert into the receiver from the bottom. So it's not a typical class 1, 2, or 3 hitch receiver that you would have on most vehicles. Some people have replaced the hitch receiver with an aftermarket if that's truly what they need, and some have even adapted the hitch insert with an adapter to convert it over to class 1, 2 to put like a bike rack, so that's possible as well. The vehicle's not wired for towing. There is the wiring harness that's available underneath the rear body to allow you to wire it for towing a trailer, but it's not anything but taped up against the frame rail in the back, so you have to complete that before you can properly tow with the vehicle. The rating being at 2,500, you can think, well, why is it only 2,500 since other vehicles with the same engine and powertrains have been able to tow more? It's mainly because the airflow design through the engine compartment is restricted. It's a wonderful design as far as airflow across the vehicle, so it has a lowest coefficient of drag for a pickup at that point in time, but it's very restricted on the airflow through the engine compartment to do the proper cooling of the engine while it's under the additional load from towing. So you can address some of that by changing the radiator if you so choose. If you're going to do a lot of towing, there are tunes where you can change the radiator temps when it comes on at low and high speed. You can add a transmission cooler for automatic transmission based SSRs. So there are ways to get around the 2,500, but to do it safely. If you don't make any changes and you tow more than 2,500 in a hot environment, you could be asking for trouble. So it's well worth doing your research on that. Some of the parts sourced for this vehicle, you would think it's just all Chevy Trailblazer. Well, not really. There are a lot of parts from various manufacturers in this vehicle, such as I mentioned before, the cooling fan. That's actually a VW source cooling fan, and that's one of the problems with the vehicle, unfortunately. Over time, the fan does fail. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Some of the interior pieces that you'll see in the cab here, the HVAC controls are actually sourced from Alfa Romeo. The drawers for change and the dash cup holder are actually sourced from Audi. So over the production run of the SSR, some changes are made to correct some problems and add some new features to try to spruce up sales. So here's a list of some of the major ones. Of course, 2005 included the engine change from the 5.3 liter LM4 to the 6 liter LS2. The transmission was changed for the automatic from the 4L60E to the 4L65E. And then, of course, with the 2005 model year, you get the 6-speed manual transmission option. To accommodate the fact that the clutch pedal will now be present in the vehicle, potentially, the passenger compartment floor pan was changed on the driver's side to a different width to accommodate the presence of the clutch pedal. So if you're buying floor mats for the vehicle, keep that in mind. 2003 and 4 are different than 2005 and 6. The hood prop rod was removed with the 2005 model year, and the hood struts were added to help lift and hold the hood. That eliminated the problem from the earlier model year where the hood blanket would get torn or the hood prop rod would be compromised. For the door panels, those were changed beginning in 2005, and a slight recess was added to the door panel to allow your hand to successfully get to the side of the seat to allow you to operate the movement of the seat, and also the heated seats, the switch to control that's on the side. So to be able to get to that, they made it a little bit easier by adding that recess to the panel. Now those door panels can be retrofitted onto the earlier SSR. It's just a change to the panel on the interior cabin side of it. So the exterior part that mounts the door mounts just fine. In fact, I've done that change on this particular SSR, so I've got 2006 door panels on my 2004 SSR. There were some body color changes. 2004 had ultraviolet. 2005 aqua blur replaced the ultraviolet special color for that year. 2005 and 6 had aqua blur available. 2006 introduced two-tone color schemes from the factory, so you could get existing colors in two tones like black over silver, silver over black, aqua blur, silver, various combinations like that. Not all colors were available in the two-tone combinations, but a good number of them were. One of the changes that he tried to address in 2006 was to increase sales. So they, of course, I already mentioned the two-tone offering from them for paint schemes, but the base price of the vehicle was changed and the pricing structure option packages were changed for 2006. So the base price was reduced by a grand or so, and then the option packages that were available in the previous model years, which were 1SA, which was the base SSR, a very low number of those were produced. And the most common configuration was the 1SB configuration for all the SSRs from 2003 to 2005. Beginning with 2006, and the base price being reduced, the option packages were changed to 1SS, which equals the 1SA from before, 2SS, which roughly equals the 1SB from before, and then there was a 3SS configuration package that you could get with the 2006 SSR, and you could get slightly different options, and including the exterior interior chrome, which I've retrofitted onto this 2004 SSR. So if you can find the pieces, you can retrofit that on your vehicle as well. Some people have actually taken the satin chrome pieces on the interior and exterior and polished them. It takes a bit of time, but they do return to a chrome-like finish. So that's another way to get. Every vehicle has some quirks, and the SSR is no exception to that. And here's a list of some of the more common ones that I've experienced personally or have heard of over the life of the SSR. One of them that I had was a first to second gear shift lag. I had a 2003 SSR that the first to second gear shift was extremely delayed, especially while going uphill. Took it in to service, they couldn't find any problems. Data logger was used, no problems found, so it was normal. No, it wasn't normal. This root cause ended up being that the transmissions supplied for the SSR had a first to second gear servo, though it had a plastic component in it. The plastic piece is flexible and made it lag. That delay was caused by that plastic piece. The same transmission supplied in the Corvette of that time period had an aluminum or metal piece of that same plastic piece, so swapping the plastic for the metal version of that part solves that problem. It's about $35 to $40 for the part and about half an hour to install it, so it's probably well worth to do that kind of change. You'll notice the upshift is greatly firmed up, and also the downshift from second to first, you'll notice the difference. Other issues I've noticed with the SSR is water intrusion in a couple of different areas. I've had it with the retractable hardtop. The first to second panel of the seal there from side to side actually has double-sided tape acting as the water barrier, I found, and it wasn't present the full width of the seal. So I ended up cleaning the seal and then putting some silicone sealant from side to side, and that resolved the issue there. In the cargo area, the top of the tailgate and cargo cover, when that comes together, there's about 3 different directions coming together, and water is supposed to come down from the sides and drain down the side of the tailgate. But there's enough of it in and start draining into the cargo area. I had one 2005 SSR that was so bad that after a rainstorm I came home and it was just almost like flooded with water in the back. It was supposed to drain out, but it was still pooled in there, so it was definitely a problem. So I added a ridge of silicone to the top of those seals, and that actually has resolved the problem. I posted that on ssrfanatic.com a long time ago, and other owners have reported that has solved it for them as well, so that's probably worth checking out. The driveshaft in the vehicle is one that's known to create a tinking noise, the one supplied by GM. It's an aluminum driveshaft, and that particular driveshaft, if you change the direction of force on it, it would cause it to make a tinking noise. The going from park to reverse or park to drive, or even while driving, letting off the accelerator pedal and pressing it again might put enough force and change of direction on it to cause it to make the noise. The solution early on was there's a company that was making an MMC version metal composite driveshaft, and that replacement one greatly eliminated, if not totally eliminated, the noise. But they stopped making that particular driveshaft and only made an aluminum one, so when I got this SSR, I have the aluminum version of that. It didn't eliminate it, it maybe reduced it 40–50%. And then I found that if you properly lube the spline on the front of the driveshaft where it goes into the transmission, that also greatly reduces it. So that combination will help you reduce that noise if that's annoying to you. The cargo lid, when it opens, we use the fob or the push button in the glove box. It's supposed to open till its fully open position. They did when the vehicle was new, but as time went on and not that much of time going on, the cargo lid started opening only a little bit, and then GM started, or service department started saying that was normal. That wasn't normal. The struts that were supplied by GM were getting weak or leaking or just not strong enough to begin with. And in fact, GM redesigned the whole mechanism at one point to try to give a little bit longer strut with a little bit different charge in it to try to alleviate that problem. It didn't fix the problem. So the solution ends up being that some aftermarket strut cartridges that you can get from simple-engineering.com or LST, you can get those with a proper charge for your particular needs. Actually, I got a slightly reduced charge on the ones I have, so my wife has the ability to close it because they're quite strong afterwards. But that's been the solution to that particular issue, and I've been very happy with that. Also with the hood, there's a retrofit kit available from those same places that includes struts that allow you to open the hood and support the hood while open, because the 2003 and 4 model years came with a hood prop, and the hood prop would potentially be compromised by not inserting it correctly at the proper point on the hood and tear the blanket on the underside of the hood. So I would strongly recommend anyone that's doing anything underneath the hood, because that hood is very heavy, to make sure you retrofit it with the hood struts that are available from simple-engineering.com or LST. One of the other, unfortunately, more common issues with the vehicle, it's not specific to the SSR, but it's the ignition switch, not the key lock mechanism itself, like you might have heard of on some other GM vehicles. It's actually the ignition switch internal to the steering column. That switch, over time and usage, the contacts get corroded and the proper amount of voltage is not sent through the switch, and then the computer modules that rely on that being a proper 12 volts or at least 9 for certain systems, it doesn't work right. So you might get some weird behavior on the vehicle. So one of the first diagnostics when something really strange electronic-wise in the vehicle is going on, change the ignition switch. So it's a fairly straightforward repair, swap out. A lot of people will carry those ignition switches on with them on longer trips, or I just carry one in general just in case. That way I can swap it out if it happens. I've had to swap it out once on this particular vehicle. Things were acting a little weird, so I just swapped it out as a precautionary statement. Some people switch out the battery and the ignition switch at the same time, just as a precautionary measure. The switch design was supposed to have been changed to an improved one with a gray and black plastic cover on it. I found that one fails probably just as much as the previous one, so it's just worth having a good spare with you. You might want to test it if you can, but carry it with you, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you can't find an AC Delco switch to swap it out with. The ABS module for this vehicle is another sore spot now that the vehicles are starting to get older. The module is located underneath the passenger compartment on the driver's side on the frame rail, and it's adjacent to the catalytic converter for the vehicle on the driver's side. And that causes problems with apparently the solder joints. Some cold solder joints are beginning to fail. There's 4 main ones that seem to be the main problem for that. So luckily we have a SSR owner community that's been really good about taking those and resoldering them, and there's been a very high success rate of that fixing the problem. So if you can take out the computer module and send them off to the various people on SSR Fanatic site, they'll try to solder it for you, and you have a high chance of that solving the problem. There are some companies as well that will take that same board and fix it for you and test it. So you have those options, but that's beginning to show up more and more in the last 2-3 years. The problem being next to the catalytic converter is, I'm surprised that it's so close to the catalytic converter. So one of the aftermarket parts available on simple-engineering.com is a heat shield for that same area. It helps mitigate some of the heat transfer from the catalytic converter into the ABS module, so you might want to check that out. That's around $50 for that heat shield. It's about 5 minutes to install. I think it's 2 or 3 bolts to install it. The other issue that occurs because of that same heat source from the catalytic converter is the automatic gear shift linkage cable endpoint that connects to the transmission, and even some on the top at the gear shift, but mainly down at the transmission end, where the neoprene piece that connects the cable to the transmission will get heated by the catalytic converter or just general driveline heat, and it will begin to harden, and then it will crumble and fail, and all of a sudden that cable pops off in the middle of nowhere, USA, and you've got no way to shift gears without going underneath and moving the cable endpoint by yourself, not the greatest solution. So there's a kit available, I believe, also from simple-engineering.com. It was originally created by a person known as Dick Belfield, also known as Dictator on SSRfanatic.com. He's got a replacement kit where it has a bolt that goes in place of the neoprene piece, and that solves the problem. And there have been a few occurrences of the top and neoprene piece failing as well. So you might want to check that out on Dick's OneDrive site, which has a bunch of PDF files about various topics on the SSR, and that's one of them that he covers. But he is the originator of that fix, and thank you, Dick, for doing that. And a couple more body-related quirks on the vehicle. The front hood has a decorative Chevrolet trim piece, and it's made of plastic. And it's surprising to me the large number of Chevrolet service departments that don't understand not to grip that. It's plastic, it's decorative only. It's not meant to be used to grab to open the hood or to close it, yet they do. So there's been a large number of those trim pieces broken over time. It is well worth figuring out the proper way to do this and to tell the people that are going to work on it to open it the correct way. It's always best to open from the edges, and potentially there's a sticker I have that's from simpleengineering.com that says to close by the hook, or you can grab by the edge of the hood at the beyond the trim piece itself and use that to pull down the hood itself and latch it. If you use that, you'll not run into a problem. And usually when I take it in for service, I'll put some blue painter's tape and it says do not touch. That's worked so far for me, but your mileage may vary on that. When it comes to the cargo lid, the proper way to close the cargo lid has usually been a learning experience. For a new owner, it's not exactly obvious, especially if someone's removed the tag that was there originally from Chevrolet, that you should open the tailgate prior to closing the cargo lid cover. Because if you attempt to have the tailgate closed while bringing down the cargo lid cover, the air in the cargo area has nowhere to escape. So as you try to close it, it's trying to all escape at that same point, and you get a lot of rebound from that event taking place. The air has nowhere to escape, and some people get quite energetic and pushing down on it. So I would suggest that you follow the proper closing procedure. There's even a replacement tag if you don't have that on yours from simple-engineering.com to remind people to open the tailgate first, close the cargo lid, close the tailgate, and I also add a reminder that the tailgate isn't closed necessarily with one push. I found a couple of my SSRs I can close with a single push and both sides will latch, but I've had others that don't. So if you push it closed with one hand, you might get, typically I find the passenger side latches pretty easily. It's the driver's side that usually takes a little extra push. So make sure you hear 2 clicks as you close that cargo area tailgate. And so how would I rate this vehicle on a scale of 1 to 10? You'll see the overall score at the end, but as far as styling, I'd say it's a 5 or 6 out of 10. It's a unique style. It was trying to be challenging, unique, and draw people's attention, so it definitely did that, I think, very effectively. The acceleration for the vehicle, the 5.3 liter first couple model years was okay. The later model years, 05, 06, with the 6 liter engine, especially with the manual transmission, I'd probably rate it a 6 or a 7, depending on your affinity to manual transmissions. The handling is moderately okay. It's an SUV platform, so you can beef it up by putting upgraded sway bars. You can make it okay, so somewhere in the 4 to 5 range. As far as handling, cool factor, I think it's got a lot of cool factor. It's very unique in the market, so you can't find another retractable hardtop pickup anywhere. So there's only 24,112 production examples of that in the SSR. The importance to the market at that point, it was acting as a halo vehicle. At least that's what GM Chevrolet dealerships were stating, to try to bring people into the dealership. They were also using the Corvette to do that. They were drawing on different people, so I don't know if it was truly effective in doing that. But as far as importance to the market, I'd say it's a 4 or 5. It wasn't the big thing to draw people, the mass market in. It was the people that wanted a factory hot rod to be able to bring them in and interest them in the Chevrolet. And that won over several people, including myself. So it was effective in that respect. The features, it's a general vehicle as far as features. It has cruise control, daytime running lights, Typical instrument panel of the time, analog gauges with a driver information center. This one has a one-line driver information center, which you'll see in another segment of the video. So it's average features. There's power plugs in the cab on both sides of the ashtray. There's a power plug in the rear cargo area. So okay features for the type of vehicle that it is. The comfort level, it's a little challenging on comfort for longer trips. The passenger compartment side's a little tight. I sat in the passenger compartment a few times. I wasn't all that comfortable. Of course, I'm not that small, so that's one factor. But my wife even will complain after a longer trip that it's a little tight. The driver's side is sufficient for me. Every few hours taking a break, it's certainly necessary. It's comfortable enough. The seats are comfortable. But I've sat in more comfortable vehicles. But for an SUV style pickup, it's fine. The quality, the build quality was overall okay. It was probably in the 5 range. There were some things as far as fitment that I found that weren't always perfect, but it was typical GM assembly build quality. The retractable hardtop sometimes wasn't always assembled with proper adjustments. Usually every SSR that I've ended up purchasing, I needed to adjust the retractable hardtop to make it so it wasn't noisy, because there's usually some adjustments either over time or just wasn't adjusted correctly from the initial assembly line that were just a bit off and would cause it to make clicking or clanking noises, or as you go around the wonderfully rough roads where I live here. So it was okay assembly quality, but not great. The practicality, it depends on what kind of vehicle that you need for your everyday life. It's one of 2 vehicles I drive on a daily basis. It's wonderfully practical for our family at this point. We have our children out of the house, so it's fine for us. It's great for trips and cruising in the back hills with the NorCal SSR Club or any other club. It's a wonderful vehicle to take on a cruise to cover up the hills. It's just not going to be a sports car when you take it on those hills. So it's okay as far as practicality. I probably give that about a 5. The value retention for this vehicle in the used car market has been quite high. I bought this vehicle in 2009 for $24,000 at a CarMax in Roseville, California. And I added some accessories to it, like the chrome trim on the interior and exterior, and Driveshaft change, and change out the radio. So there's some accessories I now won't get the money back for. But I bought it when it had 8,000 miles on it, and today, in 2018, it has 42,000 miles, and I believe I could sell this vehicle for approximately $22,000. I could remove the chrome trim. I'm hoping I could sell that and get a little more value out of it, but I think the base vehicle itself is somewhere around 22. So to me, that's wonderful value retention for a used vehicle. Most vehicles drop off a cliff after a few years, and this vehicle was doing that like most used cars in the market. But like I said, the cool factor started kicking in and the scarcity of them started kicking in, so the value started coming up over time. So what's my overall score for the vehicle? I think I would give this vehicle a 7 out of 10 overall. The reason being that value retention I mentioned is so high. The cool factor is so high, I think, and where else can you get a retractable hardtop pickup? You can't. So I enjoyed driving the vehicle on a daily basis. I share the seat time in this vehicle with my other vehicle, my Chevy SS sedan. So I love taking this out on the weekends, dropping the top. It's a single button to drop the top. We had a 2004 Ford Thunderbird for my wife, and whenever you wanted to drop the top on that thing, if you had the hard top on, you had to use a hoist to take it off, and then you had the soft top that could go up and down. So I love the fact that this is a retractable hard top with one button to put it up and down. So it's a wonderful option. So that's why I think it's a 7 out of 10. I've put together a Chevy SSR specific page on my RetroCarGuy530.com website, which you can see the link to that page at the top of this screen. And the links on that page go out to my YouTube channel SSR playlist, so you can see that link there. The SSR Wiki page that you can use to learn more information about the Chevy SSR. The owner's forum at ssrfanatic.com. Aftermarket parts and accessories at simple-engineering.com, which I've mentioned in this video before. And the SSR how-to library created by Dick Belville that I mentioned earlier. The link is a little bit complicated there, so I don't know if you can type that in by hand, but you might want to go to my page and then click on the link from there. So hopefully that's helpful to you to get to other resources available for the SSR. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're visiting the channel for the first time, please subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified when I upload new videos. Please follow at RetroCarGuy530 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Take care and have a great day.